Reality unfolds from the frequency you dare to embody. You do not chase the wind to feel its presence. You become still and it finds you. That is the truth your soul remembers. But you were taught something else. You were conditioned to run, to strive, to prove. Taught that desire must be earned, that manifestation is a reward for performance, that the universe is a judge waiting to be impressed. You were handed steps like sacred commands. Say the affirmation, visualize with fervor, elevate your vibration like a penance, and one day the gates would open. But how many times have you stood at those gates, whispering the right words, thinking the right thoughts, doing everything you were told, and still felt the silence? Still watched nothing shift, nothing break open, nothing bloom? Not because you failed, but because the formula is inverted. The truth is not hidden. It is upside down. Quantum manifestation has nothing to do with pleading. It has nothing to do with proving you are ready, or worthy, or deserving. It has everything to do with identity, with being, not becoming. You are not a beggar at the door of your own destiny. You are the architect standing inside its blueprint. The door was never locked. You simply forgot it was already open. In this very breath, you are not outside of your desired life looking in. You are in the same field where it already exists. The quantum doesn't wait for your perfection. It responds to your signal. And that signal isn't composed of words or vision boards. It's built of vibration. It's shaped by your nervous system, your tone of being, your most practiced emotional truths. According to the quantum field, all realities exist simultaneously. Not metaphorically, literally. Every version of you, abundant and afraid, aligned and anxious, empowered or unseen, they all reside in potential as uncollapsed waves. The moment you become one of them, fully, not just in thought but in frequency, the wave collapses. The path appears. You're not creating it. You're tuning into it. And here lies the quiet heresy no one dared whisper to you. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. The field is not an indifferent God. It is a living mirror. It does not punish. It reflects. And when the reflection is unclear, when your energy speaks in contradictions, desire in your words, doubt in your breath, the field cannot resolve the image. It waits, not in judgment, in precision. It does not respond to effort. It responds to coherence. You could push, scream, visualize with all the color of your heart. But if you are broadcasting lack, if your spine is bent under the weight of need, then that is the song the field hears. And it sings it back to you, not to trap you, but to remind you. The music will only change when your inner tone changes. Stop chasing. Start attuning. That's why rituals without resonance fall flat. Why vision boards without embodiment crumble like paper against wind. The field does not respond to decoration. It responds to truth. In the quantum, clarity collapses potential into presence. Intention alone is not enough. Precision is the spell. Reality, your reality, is not some chaotic stream of chance. It's a response, always. And the version you live is the one that matches your most coherent frequency. That's where it begins to shift from mystical to practical. If every possibility already exists within the field, then you are not a builder. You are a tuner. You are not carving your future out of marble. You are choosing from a cosmic memory of what already is. Not choosing with logic, with energy. The version of you who has already arrived, calm, abundant, free, is not a fantasy. It's a frequency, and you don't chase frequencies. You dial into them. You don't earn them. You align with them. That shift is the collapse. That is the quantum silent agreement. You become it, and it becomes real. Forget the newsletters, the secret methods, the links. This truth does not belong to any school. It is already encoded in your cells. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to manifest, it begins to unfold. Not because you gave up, but because you finally stepped into congruence. When you stop sending mixed signals, the field stops sending echoes. When your being becomes a unified signal, not a plea, not a performance, but a presence, reality responds. Instantly, unflinchingly. You don't bend the quantum field. You are the bend. Every thought you rehearse, every feeling you clutch to your chest, every inner state you normalize. That's the shaping. That's the craft. Most don't see this. Not because they're weak, but because they were trained to worship the steps, not the state. They were taught to chase candles and calendars, moons and mantras, scripts and charts. But the field doesn't hear your ritual. It hears your rhythm. You've been manifesting this entire time. Not through your words, but through your vibration. Through the stories you whisper to yourself in silence. Through the tension you carry in your breath when you say, I trust. And here's the hard medicine, the one most teachings wrap in sugar and delay. The universe doesn't care what you want. It listens to what you are. You can inscribe your dreams on golden parchment, chant them to the stars, collage them into masterpieces of longing. But if your nervous system is still trembling in fear, if your breath is shallow, if your core is woven with doubt, the field feels it all. It is not watching your lips. It is listening to your hum. And that's what the field mirrors. Not your polished intentions. Not your scripted mantras. Not even your most sacred desires. What it reflects is the silent music of your being, your frequency. This is where the dissonance begins. The reason manifestation, for so many, becomes a cycle of effort and emptiness. Not because you lack devotion, but because your energy speaks louder than your will. You speak of wealth while your hands tremble over your bank statement. You call in love with your voice, yet your chest is armored against rejection. You long for freedom, yet your jaw is clenched in silent war, trying to survive another day. This is not failure. It's resonance. It's how the field understands you, not through what you declare, but through what you embody. You cannot chant your way out of fear if your body is still shaped by it. You cannot whisper peace when your breath stutters. You cannot pretend alignment. Coherence cannot be faked. The field listens not to your wishes but to your tone, and your tone is carried in the nervous system, in your posture, in the stories your tissues still hold. Imagine trying to tune into jazz while locked onto the frequency of static. You long for harmony, but your dial is caught in distortion. Your thoughts say one thing, your emotions another, and your behavior dances to yet another beat. No orchestra can follow a conductor that flickers. And the field? It doesn't scold you. It simply responds. Always. This is why manifestation becomes exhausting. You rehearse the steps, speak the affirmations, create rituals with precision. Yet underneath, you're battling yourself. One voice says, I'm ready. But another quietly braces for disappointment. One part paints the dream. Another flinches at the memory of collapse. The signal fractures. And the field, unblinking, reflects the fracture. What you manifest is not measured in passion or volume, but in clarity. The sharper the signal, the swifter the response. But clarity cannot be conjured through pressure. It arises from alignment. That's why you see fleeting breakthroughs, the opportunity that appears, then dissolves. The partner who feels aligned, then vanishes. The success that comes close only to be self-sabotaged at the last breath. It's not the universe playing games. It's your signal wavering. The field doesn't choose sides. It responds to the dominant frequency, the one you inhabit most fully, most consistently, even unconsciously. And here lies the paradox. Those who try the hardest often resist the most, because trying is lack in disguise. It says, I do not have this. And the field, with perfect precision, reflects that truth back. You don't manifest what you plead for. You manifest what you feel belongs to you, not in fantasy, not in pretense, but in state. It's not about pretending you're abundant while your hands tremble with scarcity. It's not about faking confidence while your breath collapses in anxiety. It's about returning, again and again, to the inner state of sufficiency, the quiet power of enough, before the world ever confirms it. That's coherence. And how do you know when you're in it? It's silent. It's rooted. You're not reaching anymore. You're not asking when it will come. Something deeper in you already knows. It has arrived. You're not watching the clock. You're not scanning the sky for signs. You're simply in tune, clear, steady. Not because you've stopped wanting, but because you've stopped needing. You've stepped out of survival and into creation. And the moment you shift into that frequency, reality begins to bend toward you. Not with force, but with inevitability. The real work isn't in the doing. It never was. The real work is in the being, the silent, steady state you return to when no one is watching. The real question isn't, how do I manifest faster? It's, how do I become the version of me who no longer doubts it's already mine? If you're struggling to pull the life you long for into form, it's not because you're failing. It's not because you're not scripting hard enough or visualizing with enough intensity. It's because you've been looking in the wrong mirror. You've been listening only to your conscious voice, the part of you that knows what it wants, that makes the list, builds the altar, lights the candle. But that's not the part writing the story. The true author is quieter, deeper, older. It's your subconscious, the one who holds your most practiced truths. The one who was listening long before you understood language. The one who learned fear before it knew its name. This is the layer shaping the timeline. This is the one collapsing possibility into lived experience. Not the one who writes the goals, but the one who chooses the rhythm you move through life with. The quantum field responds not to what you hope for, not to what you whisper to the moon, but to the totality of your signal. And the most dominant note in that signal is your subconscious, humming beneath the noise, unwavering. You can want love with all your heart, but if your subconscious still carries the belief that you're unlovable, planted by 1,000 moments of silence, rejection, or absence, then the field tunes into that belief. Not because it's punishing you, but because it's accurate. The field isn't personal. It's precise. You can pray for freedom, but if your nervous system is still coded for danger, trained to survive rather than expand, the field mirrors that, not to hurt you, but because it has no choice. It reads the code you carry, not the wish you send. Think of your subconscious as the lens through which the quantum interprets your existence. It filters what you notice, colors how you expect to be treated, silently sculpts how you react to joy, to failure, to waiting. Your conscious mind may shout, "This is what I want," but your subconscious whispers, "This is what I expect," and the field listens to the whisper. You might dream of heading north, of peace, of ease, of expansion. But if your subconscious current is still flowing south, shaped by trauma, by stories passed down in silence, by beliefs you didn't choose but inherited, then every step forward feels like swimming against gravity. This is why the most elegant rituals collapse, why mantras fall flat, why you can declare, "I am worthy" 100 times a day, and still feel unworthy by nightfall, because you're trying to repaint the topsoil while the roots below still hold old codes. They told you to speak abundance, but your body is bracing for the blow. They told you to see love, but your inner child still flinches at the thought of being seen. The subconscious doesn't care what you say. It listens to what you've become. It responds to resonance. Not your hopes, not your effort, resonance. And if your inner world is tangled in contradiction, if you speak light but hold shadow, If you declare expansion but breathe like you're shrinking, the field reflects that fragmentation. Not in punishment, in precision. This isn't about blame. This is about reclamation, a remembering of how powerful you already are, not in some distant future version of yourself, but now exactly as you are, if only you listen deeper. You've been manifesting all along, long before you called it that. Every belief passed down in silence, every conclusion you drew as a child, every emotional pattern you learned to loop through in survival, all of it has been speaking on your behalf, whispering your identity into the quantum. You didn't know you were doing it, but the field did, and it answered, because the field is neutral, impartial, honest. It doesn't judge what you broadcast, it simply echoes it. And that's the great reckoning and the great liberation. Because once you see this, truly see it, you begin to understand. Nothing outside you needs to change first. The shift begins within the signal. Reality reshapes itself when the broadcast changes. And that change begins not by attacking your inner architecture, but by learning to dwell inside it with presence. You don't need to battle your limiting beliefs. That only reinforces the war. You need to witness them, understand them, ask them where they came from, what they were protecting, what pain they tried to guard you from. You must see how these beliefs, however distorted, were once your survival maps, sacred if misaligned. Only then can you begin to dissolve them, not through force, but through light, through awareness, through remembering who you are beyond them. Because the subconscious, that silent observer, is the one collapsing the wave. It is the one selecting the timeline. So if you are serious about a new reality, you must become serious about the stories still running in the background. Are you still carrying the myth that success demands suffering? That love must be earned through performance? That money arrives with guilt or disappears with speed? These aren't just ideas. They are energetic instructions, blueprints handed to the field, and the field, with perfect fidelity, delivers. But here's the grace. Your subconscious is not stone. It's software, and it can be rewritten, refined, realigned. You are not trapped by old code. You are its keeper, and the rewiring is not loud. It is subtle, a breath held longer. A moment of presence reclaimed, a daily return to coherence. Through repetition, through gentle recalibration, your dominant frequency shifts. Not through willpower, but through willingness. And that's when the observer effect becomes your ally. That's when you stop unconsciously collapsing timelines that drain you, and begin stepping into those that nourish your becoming. Because when the subconscious shifts, the whole song changes. And the field, always listening, responds in kind. You've been taught to think your way into change, to architect your future through thoughts, through affirmations, through perfectly chosen words. But here's what most teachings fail to tell you. Your body is the signal, not your mind, not your journal, not your dreams painted in ink. It's your body, your breath, your chest, your spine. If your mind proclaims abundance but your lungs are tight, your belly is clenched, your shoulders curve inward in fear, the field listens to that. It hears your contraction louder than your declarations. Because the body doesn't lie. The field reads coherence. It recognizes integrity between thought and form. When your voice says, "I am worthy," but your breath falters. When your heart races in panic. When your nervous system is broadcasting distress. The field mirrors that, with precision, not punishment. And here's the miracle beating in your chest. Your heart is not merely an organ. It is an electromagnetic oracle, a signal tower woven from stardust. Science has confirmed what mystics always knew, that the electromagnetic field of the heart is over 50 times stronger than that of the brain. It extends beyond your body, dancing in quiet conversation with the quantum. You don't have to shout your intentions. Your heart is already speaking. When your heart and your mind speak in harmony, when your emotions and thoughts form a single note, neither trembling nor shouting, but simply true, something changes. You stop sending mixed signals into the void. You begin emitting a field so unified, so unmistakable, that the quantum doesn't just listen, it echoes. Reality doesn't resist. It responds. This is coherence, a state not of perfection, but of inner agreement, where what you feel, what you think, and what you embody are no longer at odds. Your signal becomes clean, undiluted, and in that clarity timelines bend, not because you demand them to, but because your presence becomes undeniable. That's when manifestation accelerates. That's when you walk into rooms and feel things shift without speaking. That's when synchronicities arrive not like surprises, but like inevitabilities. Because the field begins to treat you like gravity. Not a wish, not a hope, but a force. Anchored, felt, real. And you've known this before in those rare, fleeting moments when everything just worked. When the call came as you were thinking of the name. When the door opened before you reached it. When the solution appeared before you even finished the question. It wasn't luck. It wasn't fate. It was alignment. Your system was open, calm, relaxed, present. And in that openness, the signal was pure. The field heard it without distortion. Not magic, resonance. But here's why so many burn out. They try to manifest from the mind alone. They turn dreams into checklists. They turn spirituality into performance. They repeat affirmations with voices full of fear. They fill vision boards with images their bodies still feel separate from. The mind says yes, but the body still whispers no, and the field? It listens to the whisper. This is why it doesn't stick. Why the results flicker. Why momentum crumbles. Because your signal is fractured. And the field does not respond to confusion. It reflects certainty. Uncertainty is not just a thought. It's a state. It lives in your breath, your shoulders, your gut. And the field reflects not what you want, but what you are across all layers. Coherence means those layers speak the same truth. When your nervous system settles into calm, when your breath slows and your chest softens, when your heart feels gratitude without performance, and your mind follows that rhythm, your signal shifts. In that state, your brain waves harmonize. Your heart's rhythm becomes ordered. Your entire system enters integration. And in that integration, your frequency becomes singular. The quantum listens, and it responds with precision. This is the work. Not chasing outcomes, not obsessing over timing, not micromanaging the unfolding. The work is in tuning. You are not a machine to be optimized. You are an instrument to be harmonized. And the clearer your tone, the more the world around you begins to play in key. This is the secret most never touch because they're too busy reaching outward. They perform for the field rather than become the field. They treat manifestation like theater. But manifestation is music. And music doesn't respond to volume. It responds to vibration. Let your heart lead. Let your mind serve. Let your body anchor. Let your presence become so coherent, so honest, so whole, that the field cannot help but meet you there. And when your signal collapses into chaos, the field has no choice but to reflect that same dissonance. It doesn't punish, it parallels. So if it feels like nothing is working, like the path is muddy or the signs have gone silent, the question isn't what should I do next? The question is, what is my body saying right now? What frequency am I living in? Not in my plans, not in my affirmations, but in my breath, in my bones, in my baseline. Because the body doesn't lie, and neither does the field. You were taught to think positive, to stay high vibe, to beam light at your shadows so intensely they disappear. You were told that good thoughts attract good things, and anything less than joy was a spiritual error. And while the intention behind this teaching may have been rooted in love, its execution often leads to fragmentation. Because manifestation is not pretending. It is not bypassing the raw, the real, the aching truth inside you. The quantum doesn't respond to your curated mask. It responds to your core frequency. And that frequency is not about perfect positivity. It is about honest alignment. When you obsess over always feeling good, you build a prison out of light. You begin to fear your fear, to shame your sadness, to exile your doubt. And in doing so, you disconnect from the very power that's trying to lead you home, your emotional truth. So what happens? You suppress. You bury. You stuff your pain under mantras. You paste affirmations over your grief. You try to drown your anger in oceans of gratitude. But energy doesn't vanish. It doesn't obey avoidance. It stays. And trapped energy doesn't sit quietly. It broadcasts. Even when your lips say, "I'm ready," your nervous system may still be braced for disappointment. Your subconscious may still be looping fear. Your heart may still be armored, protecting itself from the very thing you say you want. The field hears all of it. Not because it's measuring your performance, but because it reads you fully. This is why your signals feel scrambled. Not because you're broken, but because you're split. Emotional fluency is the medicine. Not avoidance, but intimacy. The ability to feel your fear without collapsing into it. To sit beside your sorrow without becoming its voice. To honor your anger without handing it the steering wheel. This is not weakness. This is power. This is mastery. Because when you allow yourself to feel without drowning, to breathe without fleeing, to name what is present without judgment, you become whole again. You stop leaking energy through resistance. You stop fighting your own signal. And instead, you begin to move through the emotion, rather than from it. That movement, that inner honoring, is coherence. And coherence is clarity. And clarity is the only thing the field responds to. So no, you do not have to be high vibe every hour of the day to manifest. You have to be true. You have to be present. You have to be willing to regulate your internal weather, not fake a sunny sky. That means noticing when your energy wobbles and meeting yourself gently. It means choosing breath when panic rises. Choosing softness when doubt tightens your chest. Choosing return when your spirit feels scattered. It means presence over performance. This is not about faking it until you make it. It's about feeling it until you free it. Because when you are fully honest with your inner world, no resistance, no rehearsal, no mask, your energy becomes unified. And in that moment, there's no static, no split, no contradiction. Only resonance, only coherence. And the field cannot help but respond. Instantly, accurately, precisely. When your being speaks in one clear language, when every layer of you, heart and mind and breath, whispers the same truth, the field listens like a mirror polished to perfection. It doesn't translate, it reflects. And what it reflects feels like magic to the mind, like miracles to the weary. But it's not magic. It's coherence. It's precision. The real barrier to manifestation is not negativity. It's fragmentation. It's what happens when you chase a polished image of who you think you should be and leave behind the raw, sacred truth of who you are. In that emotional abandonment, your signal splinters, and the field, unable to locate a coherent tone, sends you echoes of your inner conflict. But when you make space for your whole self, light and shadow, certainty and fear, expansion and ache, something ancient begins to knit itself back together. You become whole. And wholeness, not perfection, is what draws reality into form. The field does not ask for your flawlessness. It doesn't care if your smile wavers or your voice trembles. It asks for your presence. It asks for your truth. It asks for your integrity, not as morality but as inner unity. This is what turns intention into impact. Not trying harder, but being more honestly here. So the next time you catch yourself forcing a smile, shoving doubt into a corner, or clinging to positivity like armor, pause. Ask yourself, what am I afraid to feel right now? What part of me have I labeled wrong, unspiritual, unworthy? And then, instead of fixing it, include it. Hold it in the light of awareness, not to erase it, but to welcome it home. Nothing distorts your frequency more than self-rejection. And nothing clears your channel faster than radical self-acceptance. You don't need to fake good vibes. You need to become the version of you who feels safe being fully real. Because control feels safer than surrender. That's why we cling. We micromanage our intentions. We obsess over timelines. We treat manifestation like a job. Scripts to recite, outcomes to chase, pressure to perform. We believe that if we just do it all correctly, repeat the affirmations, visualize with discipline, never waver, the universe will reward our precision. But here's the quiet truth no one tells you. Control is what's jamming the signal. The more you grip, the more you push, the more you try to bend the quantum field to your timeline, the more resistance you generate. And resistance is not invisible in the quantum. It is thunder. It is static. It drowns your signal. Because the field doesn't run on effort. It runs on alignment. It responds to resonance, not struggle. And control distorts resonance because control is born of fear. Fear that the dream won't arrive unless you chase it. Fear that worth must be proven. Fear that receiving is conditional. But the moment you try to shape the field through tension, you send it a different message. I do not trust. And the field, loyal to your signal, sends back reflections of that mistrust. What is the energy of refreshing your bank app every hour while affirming abundance? It's not trust. It's scarcity dressed in spiritual language. What is the energy of obsessively scripting your dream partner while scrolling with bitterness? It's not magnetism. It's urgency, and urgency repels. These subtle acts of control scream to the quantum, I don't believe it's already mine. And the field, clear and honest, responds, so it is. Your state is the strongest prayer you will ever send. The clearest spell you'll ever cast. Surrender isn't apathy. It's not resignation. It's not weakness. Surrender is radical strength. To surrender is to say, I no longer need to chase what already belongs to me. It is to act without attachment, to give without grasping, to trust timing even when the evidence is invisible. It is to be magnetic, not because you're louder, but because you've become still enough for reality to find you. That kind of energy collapses timelines, clears static. It opens doors not with force, but with readiness. Here is the paradox. The less you try to control, the more power you access. Not over others, not over fate, but over your own alignment. And from that alignment, the field bends. People shift. Paths reveal themselves. And what once felt far begins to arrive. Not because you hunted it down, but because you stopped standing in its way. It looks like staying grounded even when your hands are still empty. It looks like keeping your heart soft when no sign has yet arrived. That is the posture that shifts mountains, not because you shove them with force, but because you no longer stand in their way. You no longer resist what is already moving toward you. Control, in truth, is not power. It's armor. It's the mind's reflex when the world once felt dangerous, unpredictable, or unjust. Control is the child trying to build safety in a storm. And if you've been gripping tightly, your plans, your dreams, your next breath, hear this. It's not your fault. You were trained for survival. You were conditioned to stay one step ahead of disaster. But you are no longer here just to survive. You are here to create. And creation is not born from fear. It rises from trust, from spaciousness, from quiet, present power. Letting go is not defeat. Letting go is a choice, the choice to release tension in favor of alignment, to stop pleading and begin embodying, to stop waiting and start being. You don't let go because you've given up, you let go because you've already become. That is energetic leadership. That is frequency mastery. That is alignment. The field doesn't yield to effort. It flows in response to flow. And flow begins the very moment you stop chasing and start allowing. If the field truly responds to your frequency, and it does, then you must remember this: your frequency is not shaped by what you want. It's shaped by who you believe you are. This is the missing key, the piece most people never unlock. You don't manifest from the surface of your desires. You manifest from the deep current of your identity. And identity is not the smile you show the world. It is not the affirmation you recite in the mirror. Identity is what lives beneath your name, beneath your story, beneath your conscious control. It's the quiet self you return to when the world goes still. It's the shape of your nervous system in silence. It's the emotion in your gait. It's how you make decisions when no one's watching. It's how you carry your breath before the outcome arrives. That's the signal the field responds to. This is why chasing doesn't work. Because to chase is to say, I'm not there yet. It is to affirm separation. And the quantum field reads that separation and reflects it, not out of malice, but out of clarity. Being is deeper than doing. Being is what your soul broadcasts through every choice, every stillness, every sigh. So the real question is not, what are you doing to manifest? The real question is, who are you being while you do it? Are you being someone who trusts their unfolding, someone who walks in quiet knowing? Or are you being someone who waits for permission to believe? Because the version of you who already lives the life you long for, that version is not a future. It is a frequency. It exists now, pulsing in the field, waiting to be embodied. And the fastest way to collapse that timeline is not to chase it, it's to become it. This isn't about faking abundance when you feel broke, or pretending you're in love with life when you're aching. It's about noticing the qualities of that future self, the calm, the generosity, the openness, and beginning to breathe like them now. Not to manipulate the universe, but to tell the truth of your becoming. If the you who lives in ease feels grounded, slow, soft, begin to inhabit that tone. If the you who is loved walks with openness, with warmth, with laughter in the eyes, let that essence rise, even before the lover arrives. Not to perform, but to align. Because alignment is not a means to an end. Alignment is the destination. Alignment is the path and the proof. It's not a trick. It's not a strategy. It's the way truth moves through time. The shift begins not when you ask, how do I get there? But when you ask, what part of me is already there, and how can I meet them now? That question, simple, disarming, changes everything. It turns the path from a chase into a return. You're no longer stretching toward your future self like a faraway star. You are becoming the frequency that future already knows. You're not pushing for results. You're embodying the kind of presence that attracts them without strain. You are stepping into a new timeline, not through hustle, not through pressure, but through resonance. And here is the quiet miracle. You don't need proof to begin. You don't need a specific number in your account to feel abundant. You don't need the lover, the title, the home, or the validation to feel complete. You begin now, with what you have, where you are, because the field doesn't respond to what's missing. It responds to what's present. You're not manifesting the thing. You're manifesting the state. And when the state is stable, the form follows, faithfully, inevitably. Identity is not carved in stone. It's a living pattern, built and rebuilt by choice. It's a rhythm you repeat until it becomes your native frequency. So ask, not from lack, not from ego, but from clarity. Who am I willing to be? Who am I becoming through what I choose, through where I place my breath, through how I meet each moment? Does that version of me align with the reality I claim to want? Or am I still waiting for permission to become? Because when your being matches your desire, the field doesn't hesitate. It echoes. Reality isn't withholding your vision. It's mirroring your embodiment. Quantum manifestation doesn't begin with reaching for more. It begins with choosing to become more, not eventually, but now. Becoming the version of you who lives in the reality you long for is not a single leap. It's a rhythm, a devotion, a daily practice, because the present always pulls toward the past. Habits, emotions, stories, all carry momentum, and unless you interrupt that flow consciously, you'll stay in the loop, broadcasting yesterday's frequency into tomorrow. This isn't failure, it's inertia, and the field, honest as breath, responds to momentum. It's not perfection that moves the quantum. It's consistency. It's the willingness to recalibrate, again and again. Alignment doesn't mean always glowing. It means recognizing when you've dimmed and returning to your light. That return, however quiet, is power. That's where the shift lives. You don't need to be fixed. You only need to notice when you've wandered from coherence, and gently bring yourself back. This is why embodiment matters. Because you cannot think your way into a new timeline. You must feel it, walk it, breathe it into your body. When you train your nervous system to inhabit the state of your desired reality, even without evidence, that's when the shift becomes real. Because your body and the field speak the same language. Sensation, vibration, coherence. Start small. Don't try to rebuild your world in a day. Start by choosing your state again and again. In the morning, ask, what frequency am I tuning into today? When fear knocks, ask, which timeline does this emotion belong to? Before a decision, ask, what would the version of me who already lives it choose now? These are not affirmations. These are recalibrations, shifts in signal that, over time, write new scripts into the quantum. One breath, one choice, one signal at a time. This is where most stop. They expect fireworks, and when it doesn't explode, they doubt it's working. But the quantum doesn't move for drama. It moves for clarity. You don't need collapse to call in rebirth. You need integrity, the alignment of your inner reality with the outer desire. Not once, but repeatedly, until your truth becomes natural, embodied, lived. And the more you do that, the more the field mirrors it. Not as a test, but as response, as rhythm, as confirmation. This isn't about control. It never was. Control is brittle. Coherence is alive. This practice, this path, is about building a relationship with your own energy so intimate, so attuned, that you feel the instant you slip from alignment. And not with fear, with awareness. You notice the drift and you return. Not by force, not by shame, but by choice. Sometimes that return happens in breath, slow, rhythmic anchoring. Sometimes in movement, the sacred geometry of the body remembering how to feel. Sometimes in stillness, a hand over heart, a whisper of truth beneath the noise. Sometimes in silence so vast, your signal becomes unmistakable. The technique is not what matters. The tool is not the power. What matters is the frequency you bring to it. Because you are the signal. You are the frequency. And every heartbeat is a message the field receives. So stop chasing outcomes that only mirror your unrest. Start anchoring states. Start becoming the version of you who no longer waits, no longer begs, no longer doubts. Embody the frequency of your timeline not after it arrives, but before, because it will arrive. Not by luck, but by law. Not by pressure, but by inevitability. The field cannot ignore clarity. It is drawn to it. And when you choose alignment again and again, even in the quiet, even in the dark, even when nothing seems to shift, that choice creates a magnetic signature. Eventually, the life you once only dreamed of doesn't feel like a miracle. It feels like memory. It feels like recognition, because it was already you. You've been waiting for reality to match your vision. But what if the truth is more subtle, more sacred? What if reality has been waiting on you to remember who you are? The most potent shift in all of quantum manifestation isn't a tool. It's not a vision board or a mantra. It's not a breathwork session or a clever phrase. It's an identity shift so deep, so cellular, that the version of you who doubted becomes unrecognizable. You are not separate from the field. You are not standing outside of creation, trying to trick it into blessing you. You are not a visitor in the realm of the infinite. You are the field. You are the observer. You are the collapse. You are the point where potential meets form. And when you embody that, not just understand it, not just believe it, but live it, everything rearranges. The illusion is that you need to make things happen, that you must push and pull and climb and strive. But when you finally remember deeply that your energy doesn't just influence the field, it is the field, you stop waiting. You stop asking. You start living, as if it's already here. Because in truth, it is. That shift from waiting to being is the portal. And being in the quantum is everything. You were told manifestation is a goal. Something to chase, something to earn, a reward at the end of a perfectly executed plan. But real manifestation is not something you get. It's something you remember. It's not about reaching for more. It's about removing every veil, every story, every inherited belief that whispers, this isn't yours. You don't become magnetic by adding more light. You become magnetic by clearing what blocks it. By returning to the truth you've always carried. You already are. You already have. You already know. The field doesn't operate in delay. It operates in precision, in immediate, unflinching reflection. What you call a delay is not punishment. It is feedback. It is the space between the reality you say you want and the frequency you are currently inhabiting. That gap is not there to taunt you. It's there to teach you. And the moment you collapse that space, not by reaching, not by grinding, but by embodying, that timeline meets you. Not as a surprise, as a resonance. This is where freedom begins. Because once you stop needing proof to believe you're aligned, once you no longer wait for signs to validate your path, you become untouchable to limitation. You become unmoved by doubt. You stop asking the world to reflect your worth and start radiating it from within. You stop waiting. You stop hesitating. And you begin becoming the version of you that your past self only whispered about in moments of silent longing. Not because the world changed first, but because you did. And reality, loyal as breath, followed your lead. This path, this unfolding, was never about mastering some secret system of manifestation. It was about unlearning the noise, about peeling back the layers, about remembering the frequency you were born to carry. The field was never silent. It was always answering, but you were trained not to hear it. You were trained to delay, to hustle, to beg for permission. But now you know better, and that kind of knowing cannot be undone. It doesn't fade, crystallizes. So here it is, your invitation. Stop performing. Stop polishing. Stop waiting. Start becoming. Become the version of you who no longer hopes but knows. The version who no longer chases but radiates. The one who already knows, in the marrow of their being, that what they desire is not a fantasy. It's a frequency. And that frequency isn't in the distance. It's here now in the room with you. waiting for your yes, waiting to be chosen. Wanting is easy. Readiness is rare. So many say they want to change, to shift timelines, to step into their next embodiment. But few are prepared to hold what they call in. Desire is loud. Readiness is quiet. Desire says, I want more. Readiness whispers, I am now built to carry what I once feared. There's a reason timelines don't collapse under demand. The quantum doesn't move at the speed of wanting. It moves at the speed of integrity, of resonance. Because every version of you that exists in potential also carries a corresponding energetic pressure. To become that version is not simply to think differently. It is to live at a frequency your system may have never sustained before. And if your body, your breath, your nervous system are still calibrated to survival, the frequency of ease will feel unbearable. Not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. This is the hidden reason some manifestations flicker and vanish. The field didn't withhold. You simply couldn't yet hold it. You called in abundance, but your subconscious still equated visibility with danger. You asked for intimacy, but your body still braced against closeness. You wanted expansion, but your nervous system was still wired to shrink. And so the quantum responded with mercy, not punishment, by releasing what you weren't yet coherent enough to embody. This is why some say the work doesn't work. But it does. It works with exquisite precision. It mirrors your readiness, not your wish list. So the question becomes, not what do I want to create, but what am I truly prepared to sustain? Because alignment isn't just about receiving. It's about holding. It's about staying open when the new arrives, not collapsing under the unfamiliar joy, not flinching when the expansion begins to breathe through you. Readiness is about nervous system capacity, about subconscious alignment, about emotional fluidity. It is about building the body to house the light you've been praying for. This is the deeper work. Sometimes the greatest act of manifestation is not asking for more, but practicing how to be still with what you already fear to feel. Practicing how to be safe in your own expansion. Because the field hears when you say, I'm ready, but it believes it when your body stops resisting the arrival. And if you stay with it, not just in thought, but in breath, in bone, the field will begin to respond not to your hunger, but to your wholeness. And what once felt like longing becomes a quiet homecoming, not to a fantasy, but to the version of you that has always been waiting behind the veil of readiness. Shifting timelines is not a flash of light. It's not fireworks in the sky. It's something quieter, stranger, closer to the feeling of forgetting a dream while still remembering how it felt. It's a movement beneath language, like sliding through layers of sound, each one more familiar than the last, though you've never lived them. You don't step into a new version of you like stepping into a costume. You dissolve into it breath by breath, gesture by gesture, micro-decision by micro-decision. You don't notice the threshold until you've crossed it. And even then, it doesn't announce itself. It simply stops feeling like you're pretending. One day, you catch yourself standing differently, laughing from a deeper place, saying no without a quake in your throat. And you realize, the version of you who used to dream of this is no longer dreaming. She's breathing. He's here. Timelines are not lines. They're textures, frequencies, fields of memory and pattern that overlay the present moment. Each one is available not as fantasy but as architecture. You collapse into them not by asking but by aligning. And here's the mystery. The collapse doesn't feel like an explosion. It feels like returning to something you never remember choosing, but somehow always knew. The shift from one timeline to another is like shifting emotional gravity. You begin to respond to the world from a different inner orbit. What used to trigger you now passes through like wind. What used to feel unreachable now feels inevitable. but it's not always gentle. There is grief in leaving behind the version of you that belonged to the old story. A soft ache in shedding the armor that once kept you safe. That version didn't fail. She completed her role. He carried you here. And now it's time to lay that self down with reverence, not rejection. Each timeline is a self-contained reality, not just of circumstances but of identity. Who you believe yourself to be shapes what you allow, how you interpret what you magnetize. So when the shift occurs, the external may look similar, but your inner script is rewritten. You're no longer auditioning. You're no longer hoping. You're no longer holding your breath. You're home. And this is the truth they rarely say out loud. Becoming your next self is not about effort. It's about permission. It's about walking through the veil of almost into the texture of already. It's about recognizing that timelines are not gifted to the worthy. They are embodied by the willing. So if you feel the fabric of your current self beginning to loosen, let it. Don't rush to fix. Don't rehearse the past to make sense of the present. Let yourself be reconfigured. Let the old words fall silent. Let the new hum emerge without needing to translate it. Because on the other side of this shift, you will remember, the future is not coming to find you. It's already singing in your cells. And all it ever needed was your yes. The body remembers everything. Before you spoke your first word, before you could name joy or fear, your body was already coding experiences into sensation. It knew the difference between safety and rupture before your mind had language. And it never stopped listening, never stopped recording. This is why the body is not separate from your manifestation. It is your manifestation. The field doesn't read your thoughts the way you think it does. It reads the resonance beneath your words. It listens through your breath, through your pulse, through the subtle choreography of your nervous system. When you say, I trust, but your shoulders tense and your breath gets shallow, the field doesn't mirror the sentence. It mirrors the contraction, because contraction is a signal. When you affirm, I am abundant, but your spine curls forward and your jaw clenches with unspoken scarcity, the field doesn't reflect the mantra. It reflects the posture, because posture is a prayer. Your body is always speaking, even when you're silent, especially then. And this is what most teachings miss. They give you scripts, but forget to ask how your breath moves when you speak them. They offer affirmations, but ignore that your gut still flinches in disbelief. They tell you to think positive, but neglect that your body may still be vibrating with survival energy. The truth is, coherence is not mental. It's somatic. Your body holds the code to your frequency. Your gestures, your rhythms, your stillness, they are not just physical habits. They are energetic broadcasts. They tell the field whether you feel safe to receive, whether you feel worthy of ease, whether you are available for the reality you're calling in. This is why embodiment matters more than visualization, why breath matters more than belief, because the field responds not to what you hope, but to what your tissue believes is safe. And for many, expansion doesn't feel safe. Not yet. The body, conditioned by years of microtrauma and subtle disapproval, often holds more familiarity with tension than with peace. You may want abundance, but your nervous system has been shaped by scarcity. You may want to be seen, but your fascia remembers every time visibility was dangerous. So your signal becomes layered. Your mind says yes. Your body whispers no. And the field, exquisitely precise, responds to both, but it always follows the dominant signal. And in the body, that signal lives in patterns, in breath, in tone, in pace, in stillness. But this is not a problem. This is an invitation to stop bypassing the body as an afterthought, to begin listening, not to control it, but to commune with it, because your body is not betraying you. It is protecting you with outdated maps. It is trying to keep you alive with coordinates that no longer match who you are becoming. And your work is not to override those maps with force, but to update them with presence. Begin simply. Notice your breath when you speak your desires aloud. Is it fast, rushed, held? Notice your posture when you visualize your next version. Does your chest collapse? Does your throat tighten? Notice your body's reaction when you imagine receiving what you've asked for. Is there openness or flinch? These are not obstacles. These are entry points. They are the very places where new timelines are waiting to root. Because the field doesn't require perfection. It only requires honesty. When you begin to breathe in trust, when your body learns to feel safe in softness, when your gestures begin to mirror the version of you you're becoming, something shifts. Not in concept, but in frequency. The field receives that coherence. And it answers. But embodiment is not a switch. It's a slow reintroduction to safety. A reteaching of what your system forgot it could feel. And it begins with rhythm, with letting the breath deepen without permission, with letting the shoulders drop without needing proof, with walking more slowly, speaking more gently, allowing stillness to become a signal instead of a silence. It is in these micro-movements that your future begins to anchor, because manifestation is not about summoning reality from thin air. It's about preparing the vessel. It's about becoming the environment in which your vision can land and stay. So ask not just, what do I want to receive? Ask, is my body ready to hold it? Is my breath aligned with its arrival? Do my movements speak of trust or of hesitation? The field is always listening, and your body is always speaking. Make them allies, and reality will respond. If these words stirred something ancient in you, if you felt not inspired, but remembered, let this be your next breath forward. Join the space where the deeper work lives, where we unravel the hidden layers together. Subscribe to Mysteries of Thoth, and align with what you were never meant to forget. And if this message met you in a moment of recognition, let the world know. Comment, I feel the hum.